Hey, I want to welcome you to our Rio City Church podcast. This is our very first episode, very first podcast, which is really, really fun. But typically our Rio City Church podcast is going to be filled with our messages, teaching content, and other audio content that you can listen to. My prayer is really that you would grow spiritually from it. But what I wanted to do is I want to kind of mix it up a little bit. I wanted to talk life and leadership with some special guests. And so these guests are going to be pastors. They're going to be business leaders, entrepreneurs, but leaders who are leading at every level. And what these episodes are going to be called is Rio City Next Level. These are special episodes dedicated to helping people go to the next level in their life and in their leadership. And so today we're going to be talking to my good friend, Chad Bruegman, all the way from Red Rocks Church out in Denver, Colorado. Chad was one of the founding pastors of Red Rocks there, and helped grow that church, helped lead through different levels, and did some really, really cool things there. And today what he's doing is he's traveling, he's speaking, and is really doing some really cool stuff in churches, organizations, nonprofits. And so if you need a guest speaker, then make sure you get Chad. All right. So you will not be disappointed. But today what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about how to lead people through times of crisis. So this is like a really important conversation, especially for a time like we're facing today. So what do you say to people who are in crisis? What do you not say? How do you make sure that your heart and your soul, your mind is healthy so that you can help other people? It's a great conversation, so let's get to it. All right, I am here with the man, the myth, and the legend, Chad Bruegman. I feel like I honestly, like, if we could have like a little applause thing, that would have been awesome right then.
Or a big applause.
Yeah. Oh man. Okay. So Chad, you are, you're in sunny Denver, Colorado right now.
Super sunny and like 70 degrees. It's perfect.
Dude. So
Denver
wonderful.
70 is what heaven's going to be like. I'm certain.
Oh man. I envy you. Can you see mountains where you are right now?
Not my window right here is to my right, and I'm staring at my neighbor's yard, but right to the left, if I got up and looked out the window, I would see beautiful mountains about 3 miles away. So
nice.
Yeah.
It is so great.
Suffering for Jesus here in Denver.
So yeah, I mean, are you like, are you quarantining very well right now? Or is it kind of like you're losing your mind? What's going on in the Bruegman household?
So I don't know how everyone else is that'll be listening to this, but I'm hour to hour guy. So right now I feel great. I went for a run before this podcast. Like I said, it's 70 out. I'm gun shooting at neighbors. Just, hey, what's up? Doing great. 6 feet apart, of course. But
oh yeah,
my kids are banished to their rooms while we're doing this podcast. So I feel great right now. Next hour there'll be fights, injuries, laughter. And then repeat for 24 hours. And so,
yeah,
I think
how many kids you have?
We have 4.
Yeah.
So, and they're 14 from ages 14 to 4. And so it's just chaos. Yeah. My 4-year-old pooped his pants twice yesterday, not once, twice. And he's 4. He's not even supposed to be doing that anymore. And he did it twice yesterday. So that's our life.
Oh man.
My wife still loves me. I don't think likes me today, but she loves me. So we're good.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. It's the same way around here. 4 kids. It gets louder and louder. It seems like every day, just the overall volume. And then it's been raining here the last few days. So it's been truly like cabin fever around here. So, good old San Antonio.
We had a snow day last week, and it was 25 degrees and snowy for literally 24 hours. So,
oh my gosh,
we couldn't even go out in our back or front yard or go for walks or whatever. So it was miserable.
Dude, that's gnarly. Well, dude, so NBA going to be happening this year. What do you think?
I think they'll find a way because money's on the line, and I sure hope so. I'm a LeBron guy. Sorry to all your listeners that hate me now and turned it off immediately, but I'm right about him. I'm a huge LeBron fan. I've been since his high school years, and I think this was the closest year he's had in a long time. to actually getting another ring. And I think for his legacy's sake, he needs it. So I'm hoping somehow, some way, I don't care if there's no fans, I'm hoping they play again. But
Dude.
I don't know, man. These are weird times, uncharted. So who knows?
They are. So who's your NBA team? Is it the Lakers?
Yeah, I'm obviously I watched the Nuggets, and they're actually legit the last couple years.
Yeah, they were like
they were number 2 in the West the whole season mostly, and then they just had a big slump, and I'm hoping this break cures that. But I think they're down to 3 or 4 now in the West. But I mostly keep up with the Lakers because I follow LeBron wherever he goes.
Dude, well, I'm excited for it. Hopefully everything will die down. We'll get NBA back. We will hopefully get the NFL back in all of its glory. You're a Broncos fan.
No. Well, yes.
Not.
I grew up in the Bay Area, so you're going to love this because you got dominated. But I'm a huge Niners fan, so I hate you and half your listeners because I know they're going to be Chiefs fans from your time.
But listen,
I'm kidding. I love you.
I know. I just want anybody who watches this, hears this, knows that I was in Kansas City for a little bit. We did celebrate that the Chiefs destroyed the 49ers.
But you're a huge Cowboys fan. I'm sorry.
No, I know. And we're the butt of everybody's jokes. And,
yeah,
I get it. It comes with the territory after you win so many championships, but it's been 23 years now.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
And I don't know about that Dak contract, dude.
Yeah.
I'm kind of frustrated by it.
Yeah, I'm going to stay out of that, but
yeah. Well,
because I don't want the Cowboys to thrive. So
yeah, nobody does.
Whatever.
Nobody does. Well, hey, what are you doing now? So, you were on staff at Red Rocks Church. I mean, a very small, struggling church in Colorado.
Yep.
And you helped start that. So, what are you doing now? What's going on with you?
So it's been a year and a half since I resigned from Red Rocks, which was the by far hardest decision of my life, which also means I've lived an incredibly blessed life because a lot of people have had to make way more difficult. But that really was, we were there for almost 15 years. We started it from scratch with family members and best friends. And so the degree of intimacy we had with that place was hard. That's the first time I've had a small taste of the maternal instincts that God gives moms for their children, that mama bears and their cubs, where you will just destroy anything in the pathway of those cubs, what God allows moms to feel. That's what I feel for Red Rocks. And so when I had to resign from Red Rocks, man, a big chunk of my heart was just ripped away. And we prayed for months. We thought about it for a long time. I was getting super tired and worn out and having some mental health issues. By God's grace, I didn't resign. In case any of your listeners don't know me, by God's grace, I didn't have to resign because of any moral issues. And there was nothing wrong there. It was just really some major depression issues and some fatigue issues. And I was just struggling, man, and I had to back away. Our church, as you know, it grew really fast. It scaled for about a decade straight. It scaled at a alarming, beautifully. It was, don't get me wrong, it was so fun, but it scaled at an incredible rate and grew really fast. And I think it overwhelmed me. I'm not much of an entrepreneurial spirit. And the bigger that got, the faster, the more it demanded dynamic, entrepreneurial, organizational people. And so I felt like I was playing catch quite often to the amazing things God was doing in that place and still is. I think, he's doing incredible stuff there. So it's fun now to watch from a distance. But now I took a decent amount by God's again grace. I was blessed to be able to take a decent amount of time off and kind of get my soul back and nurse that back to health. And what a great time that was. And now I've been preaching again, man, and traveling around church to church, to conference kind of stuff. I've been actually dipping my feet into the pools of the corporate world and talking with corporations and staffs And that's been a new muscle I've been flexing, which is really interesting because it's a pretty muscle. I love it. I've actually really enjoyed it, but it's been a challenge. So that's what I've been up to lately.
Dude, it's awesome. Well, man, I just appreciate you being on this for today, and have always admired you. We first met, was it 3 years ago? I think 3 years ago at my old church, Summit Park Church in Kansas City. You'd came.
What up, Summit Park? Love you.
What up? And spoke for a men's night. And that was my first interaction with you. We got to hang out with Dante Hall for a little bit, the human joystick. That was awesome.
Don't kick the ball to Dante Hall. That's a statement in Denver. The Broncos are haunted by that guy.
Dude, it was so awesome. I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this right now. And I got Chad Bruegman here, and I got Dante Hall, and it was a good time. But that's where we first met. And man, I just admired you from afar. I think your spirit is truly like real, and it's authentic. And I think a lot of people, relate to that. And just as people who are, watching any kind of communicator, it doesn't have to even be a pastor from a stage, but people can sniff out authenticity really quick, and they can also sniff out, a person being fake really quick. But you're one of those people that, man, I think anybody that I interacted with, my own perception of you has always been, man, this guy really loves God and he loves people. And I always feel like I've always thought that you've done really well with just, following you on social media. You do a great job at just seemingly being with people. You're like the people's pastor. You know what I mean? And I think that's always been really admirable about you. And so, man, I'm excited to kind of talk with you a little bit today, just about, given the circumstances we're in with COVID-19, and like, it's crazy to think like this issue, this thing that is happening is not just centralized to the United States, but it is literally worldwide. Unique. I mean, at least in my lifetime. And I pray that it's the only one in my lifetime. But given this like hardship that so many people are facing, people have lost jobs, people have lost lives, people are experiencing trauma. And so I just kind of want to talk a little bit about, like, how do you view all of this, A, of all, but B, like, how can the church, how can Christians, followers of Jesus, how can we be with people in traumatic times?
Yeah, that's a great question. I want to start by just giving a little bit of my background through COVID-19. So it hopefully lends me a little bit of credibility as I speak. Because words matter always. They always matter. But in difficult times, they can also sometimes feel really cheap in light of what's going on, or not enough. And so I want to be really careful with my words. My job now, since I've resigned from Redbox, if you think about this, my job is to travel and speak to crowds, bigger crowds. And so I, by default of that, became unemployed the minute this COVID-19 quarantine hit several weeks ago. Like, March for me was the busiest month I've had as far as working, speaking. March was going to be crazy. And then literally almost at the halfway point of March, I lost my job. Like, all of the places I'm speaking at or was going to be speaking at in the next quarter or even half year have already been calling, and pretty much for the most part, with a few exceptions, canceled. And I don't fault them for that. I totally get it. Our main job right now is safety. Our main job right now is to honor and obey the government and listen to what the experts are telling us about how to, deal with this as quickly and as effectively as possible. And so I'm unemployed right now. And I didn't know when I entered March that I wouldn't have a job out of nowhere. And March was the best month yet. And so this caught me off guard, man. And like so many people, I have all the opportunity in the world to be scared to death right now, and to lose my mind, and to freak out, and to, man, not know what's coming next and how I'm going to earn it's not the best time to go find a job either.
Right.
Well, you just lost your job. And so, I have such a deep sense of empathy, knowing that my story is one of millions, first of all, and that there's also several million more people, not just in America, but globally, that have such worse stories through COVID-19 than I do. And so I just want to make sure your listeners know that, man, when I speak with great sobriety, and I hope and pray that I'm super careful in this conversation to represent God well, and give hope in light of a really difficult time. People are scared. People are tired. Here's one that I think we need to talk a little bit more about, because Christians haven't historically dealt with this, I think, really great. People are angry. I think when we get fearful, especially, and I don't want to just box men and women into categories, but I know men because I is one. And a lot of men tend to manifest fear with anger,
right,
as the outlying emotion. And it's kind of masking what's really going on, which is fear and pain and uncertainty. And us not knowing, as providers, us not knowing what to do with that. And I think right now, and I think it's interesting that we're talking on the Monday of Holy Week. And the main theme of Monday on Holy Week is actually righteous anger. This is the day Jesus went in and flipped tables. This is the day Jesus went in and made an incredibly important political and religious statement to the politicians and the religious leaders of the day, that his kingdom looked nothing like what they were practicing and what they were promoting, and something has to change. Right. And this was his day of righteous anger. And I think anger, when you channel it right, is a gift. And when you channel it wrong, as the Bible talks about, it's sin. It says, in your anger, do not sin. It doesn't say anger is a sin. It says in your anger, there's a righteous way to do it, and there's an unrighteous way to do it. And so I'm working on that, man, because I'm angry too. I'm angry, man. And some people are angry at church right now. Some people are angry at the government. Some people are angry at the president. Some people are angry at the people who are angry at the president. It depends on which tribe or which side you're on. There's a lot of collective anger that I think underneath it is really just fear. Yeah. I think so much dysfunction just continually stems from not knowing what to do with fear. And then a lot of people get out their anger in the wrong way because they wait and wait and wait, especially as Christians, because we think we've got to hide it, hold it. But we know eventually it's going to come out, right?
Right.
And so I think you need, while you're quarantined, I think you need strategic times to be angry and figure out, how can I do this in a righteous way? I think one of the things for me that's been huge is I have permission to be unfiltered and angry with my wife. Not at her, that sounds horrible, but with her, and in what I'm going through and what I'm feeling. Like, I have permission without judgment. She knows my heart. She knows my character. She knows the degree of integrity I do or don't have better than about anyone. And she knows that I'm going to say some things that I wouldn't say to anyone else. And she knows how to filter what's holy and what's unholy, and then to process that with me so we can filter out the unholy anger and recognize that so it doesn't turn to sin. And I can feel heard about the anger and fear I'm going through during this time. And it's been super helpful. Yeah. And I realize not everyone has a spouse that they can do that with, but I hope you have a few friends, maybe family members, that trust your integrity and character enough to let you be your unfiltered, unedited self in a safe environment, and then process that and weed out what's holy and what's unholy. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, totally. And I think I think I'd like to probably talk a little bit about that, because as we're talking about how can we be a help to other people, I think it all starts with the condition of our souls. Like, Jesus in Matthew chapter 15, he was talking about, he said that the things that come out of the mouth, really, they come from the heart. How, like, for you, and I heard you talk about this at CMN conference a few weeks ago, but like, what are some other things? Like, what are some practices that Christians can do on a daily basis? I mean, we've all got time right now, right? Like, maybe not everybody, but What are some things that we can do to kind of make sure that our hearts and our minds are right?
Yeah, well, of course, the cliched answer is, what am I about to say? Pray and read your Bible, right?
Right.
And I think cliches are cliches because there's so much universal truth in them that they become cliches. So, of course, pray and read your Bible. But what I've always said about spiritual disciplines and how to be practicing those in any season of life is, I think the importance of spiritual disciplines, because they're all a means to an end. Praying is a means to a greater end. Reading the Bible is a means to a greater end. But any spiritual discipline that we're practicing in these times, I think the best spiritual discipline for any season is the one that is most energizing your soul. And that's different for every single person. And so what I've tried to do is, I've kind of matured in my faith, is be comfortable with, I don't have to pray a certain amount of time every day. I don't have to read the Bible a certain amount of chapters a day to feel like I'm doing my good Christian duty. What I need to do is be honest about what is the thing that is bringing the most life to my soul. Because Jesus, in John 10, his ultimate goal is that we would have life and life more abundantly. Then we've been given all these beautiful spiritual disciplines and life disciplines to wrap around that to enjoy life again. And so what is feeding your soul the most? When do you feel God the most? When do you feel yourself being revived and refilled with hope the most? And for me, it's like, okay, am I a Bible reader today? Is that it? Is that my, and some days I'm just on a roll and I can't put it down. Then other days I'm like, I'm going to go nuts if me and God don't have a really heart-to-heart conversation. Like, I have to be on the record with God today. And so I'm going to spend a little more time praying. And then other days, I really believe this with all my heart, Chris. Other days, the most spiritual thing I can do is I'm going to go out and I'm going to sweat.
Yeah.
I'm going to get my endorphins up. And I'm going to let the physiological way that God made our bodies and designed our bodies to work at an optimal level, I'm going to do that. I'm going to push myself, and I'm going to let all of the physiological things that happen affect my spirituality.
Right.
And I'm saying that, and I'm taking the long road to say, some days the most spiritual thing you can do is burn a few more calories than you did the day before.
Come on.
And so for me, and some people might disagree, and I respect that. For me, I think asking the question every day, what discipline or disciplines are going to most fuel me and fill me with hope? Because if we've ever, the Bible clearly says that hope is our anchor.
Right.
If we've ever needed to be anchored more while the waves are going crazy, these waves of the COVID-19 pandemic, it's now. And so I wouldn't over spiritualize one thing and under spiritualize another. I think you just honestly say, what honestly makes me the most hopeful? And then I'm going to go and practice that.
Dude, that's good, man. I think it's, I think that whole idea of like, man, what gets you close to God? I think if you've grown, like for me, I grew up in a very, religious environment. And it always seemed like, man, the only way to connect with God is to say the Lord's Prayer and, throw on some worship music or, whatever you got to do in churchy terms. And, man, it was after kind of I would call it a traumatic season of my life that I really began to realize, like, God's grace is so much beyond my frame of like what I thought I needed to get to God. Like, I totally love that. Like doing something physical that gets you closer to him. Like I was watching a show on Netflix the other day. It is the one with Will Smith, Strange Rock. And I'm sitting there watching this movie, and it's talking about this documentary. It's talking about like the earth, and they're coming at it from a very like, scientifical approach. But I'm sitting there going, I'm getting like, this is better devotional time that I've had in reading my Bible, I'm looking at the world and seeing how it was created, and it just made me think more about God in that moment. I found myself worshiping him. It wasn't like I was like lifting my hands or anything, but I think we underestimate that a lot. Like, what gets you? Is it exercise, or is it listening to rock music? I was in counseling at one point, and my you can call him a therapist or whatever, but he was like, I'll throw on some 70s rock, and like that's when I get close to God. And I was like, my religious mindset, I was thinking, how can you do that? And but then I found myself being like, man, I'll listen to Coldplay, and man, I find myself kind of, it's not, I'm not calling it like, I'm not worshiping Coldplay, but it's just fun to think about how God he'll use some of the physical things, because we're physical creatures and he's given us five senses for a reason, right? Like sight, smell, taste, touch, hearing. And I think sometimes we like limit ourselves to just a few of those senses. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So anyways, I think it's a
Well,
really good point.
I think the natural instinct of the evangelical believer is, we've been trained, you pray and you read your Bible and you worship, right? And
Right.
those things are so critical to our souls being alive and full and
Right.
strong. But what I don't want to do at the expense of those great things are undermine and underplay the value of, I went on a walk yesterday with my son. We're playing a video game together on our phones where you have to walk for you to play the game. And it's brilliant because it's getting kids to move. And we probably charted 5 total miles yesterday on 2 different walks together. And I had my most worshipful, gratitude-filled moment with God of yesterday when I was on that walk, between the scenery, getting our heart rates up, being with my son together, doing something that both made us enjoy each other's presence. I had a moment where I didn't say it out loud, but quietly in my heart, I was walking with my son and I was just looking at him and I was just thanking God from the depths of my heart. Like there was like, I wasn't thinking about COVID. I wasn't thinking about being unemployed. I wasn't thinking about the bills that I can't pay right now. I just had this overwhelming flood of gratitude towards God because I was on a walk with my son playing a video game twice yesterday. And all of that combined just made me go, man, God, you are good. I have a son. I have a healthy son. We're getting to spend time together that we wouldn't have went on those 2 walks if COVID-19 hadn't happened. Yeah. And of course, I wish it wouldn't have happened. But in the midst of a really hellish, horrible thing, there is incredible amounts of beauty that you can find in it, because God is just always bigger than what we're experiencing. He's always bigger. He's always better. And the more you just keep persevering and pushing through, the more you keep running into these holy moments where you go, okay, God's on the throne. His heart rate isn't sped up through this.
Right.
He's good when it's bad and he's good when it's good. And it's his goodness we lean into, not circumstance. And I know that's easier said than done sometimes. And I want to be real empathetic and careful right now for what people are going through. But I stand by it. God is good right now.
Yeah.
And and I'm grateful that I have that genuine conviction. It's not a pie in the sky belief. For me, it's not a crutch. It's a deep-seated experiential conviction with 20 some years of pressing in and getting to know God and his character, that this situation is really awful and God is really good.
Yeah.
And I don't feel pressure to build that bridge between the two. Right. I don't think the 2 statements are mutually exclusive. God is incredibly good and this situation really sucks.
Yeah.
And those two statements can sit together without having to be ironed out, theologically perfect. Without us Christians having to come up with all these incredible answers or being God's defense attorneys in this time where it could look like to non-believers God's on trial, because how could a good God let fill in the blank, millions of people globally die? How could he not stop this pandemic? I think when we, Chris, start trying to be God's defense attorney when he needs no attorney, I think we do a real disservice to this time we're in.
Right.
And unfortunately, especially via social media, I've seen so many statements and so many sound bites of my fellow brothers and sisters that are feeling the need to make sense of this on a sovereign theological level.
Right.
And I just think that that's never typically served us well in
Right.
retrospect.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think that's our role right now. Go ahead.
yeah, no, so let's talk about that. Like, cause I'm seeing the same thing. And that's kind of a little bit of what drove this moment that I wanted to have with you. It's, Christians are so, I think we have such a unique position in that, a big staple of Christianity obviously is faith, right?
Right.
Like we serve a big God, who we believe this with all of our hearts, that created everything, that he's sovereign, that he knows the number of hairs on our head. He knows the next day, and he knows every day in our lives. And so we have this big faith to believe that God can do anything. We read stories about Jesus, healing people, restoring their eyes, restoring their hearing, literally resurrecting people from the dead. And so I think in evangelical circles, we're like faith, 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 faith. I see faith over fear, faith over fear.
Yeah.
But talk to me, like, what do you do though when you've got someone who just lost someone to COVID-19, or
Yeah.
you can copy and paste that to whatever tragedy they experience? Like, what is the best way, and what's practical, helpful ways for believers to walk with people who've experienced something that's like unbelievably tragic?
Yeah. I think, my first thought, you go to the Bible right away. And my first thought is, probably the best case study we have on a grand level, like global level, is the book of Job, right? In the Old Testament, the Hebrew scriptures, because he just goes through the worst day possible, right? Worst
Right.
week, worst month possible, worst year possible. He's the poster boy for worst ever, right? Like worst scenario. And then his good Jewish friends, as they would do, they come and they sit with him for probably, I think in the Jewish culture, it's, I think 72 hours, maybe three full days. They did this ancient thing where they shaved their heads and they would sit in the dust. Like, from dust we were made, to dust we will return, which was one of their ancient statements and creeds of belief. And they would sit in the dust. And in the beginning of Job, after he's gone through this horrific thing, they sit with him, shave their heads, and they're all silent. And it's just this beautiful time of just empathy and kindness and compassion, like at the highest level. 72 hours of silence and shaving your heads. That's a man making himself, or a woman, vulnerable. Like that's been called in the Hebrew world the crown, right? Your hair, your head, and you're shaving it to say, I'm becoming naked again before you, to show you that I'm with you in your trauma, in your tragedy, in your difficulty. They do this beautiful thing. And then when that period's up, they instantly go back to our human nature, which is not compassion and empathy. It's, okay, let's figure out whose fault this is. Let's figure out why this happened. Let's figure out what our role is, what God's role is, who he clearly must be punishing someone, or something this horrific didn't happen, right? And so then they spend the rest of most of the book back and forth arguing over whose fault, who did this. And, finally God steps in, and to make a long book short, he just speaks to mystery and to sovereignty. And he doesn't answer questions. He just reaffirms who they are and who he is.
Wow.
And the position of authority and trust. And the position of leader and follower, shepherd and sheep, right? He ultimately, in this grand, poetic, beautiful, but really sobering language, says, stay in your lane. And your lane and my lane, Chris, is we are soldiers of empathy, compassion, radical acts of kindness, and generosity. Like, we are at our best when we are meeting the practical needs of people in trauma. We are at our worst when we are trying to assign blame. We're trying to throw our prophetic armchair quarterback ideas about why and what God's up to. That's sport, yeah, sure. But it does, I've seen, in my opinion now, so your listeners can listen with a grain of salt, but this does more damage than it's helpful,
Mm.
and this is when, we get a little, in my opinion, prophetically crazy, when we could be mustering all that energy up for an insane amount of generosity and practical kindness.
Yeah.
People in trauma need us to proverbially shave our heads and sit in the dust with them and minister to them by mostly your presence. Now, our presence is different because it's Zoom presence, it's FaceTime presence, but that matters.
Right.
Like, being in a conversation with you right now is filling me up, but we're still disconnected. Of course, I'd rather be face to face with you, but this still matters. And I think we have a chance right now. And I think so many churches are doing this at an amazing level. I think
for sure.
I'm speaking more to a lot of the social media hit pieces you're going to see, the sound bites you're going to see from Christians on the news stations trying to tell the news anchor what God's up to. And one person will hear it and throw their arms in the air and salute what the person said. There's some people in the same Christian circles that have experienced profound trauma, and what that person just declared makes no sense to their situation and is actually hurtful.
Right.
So I went on a rant there, but this is so important to me, man. When the 49ers were in the fourth quarter and they're up 10 points to start the fourth quarter, 10 points when you got Patrick Mahomes on the other side is nothing, even in a quarter.
Right.
He can eat, and we saw it happen, right? But when they started slipping, which was the minute they went 3 and out in that first series, my gut just dropped. And here's exactly the mode that I went into instinctually. I became the best coach on planet Earth. I'm Bill Belichick. I'm Tom Landry. I'm Bill Walsh. I'm the best coaches of all time on my couch. I'm 20% body. I'm 30% body fat. I run a 40 in about 9:12. I'm 46 years old. I have huge bags under my eyes. I get injured just getting out of bed to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night. And all of a sudden, I'm the best football mind there is because my team is making me panic. And I'm starting to feel this overwhelming sense of like, it's all imploding. It's all blowing up. We had a good thing going and now it's gone. And I think right now, as Christ followers, we can be really tempted to armchair quarterback God and sit on our couches and try and coach through this, something we know nothing about and aren't physically, mentally, emotionally, or spiritually prepared to lead people through. I think what people need to be led through is seeing us lead the way in empathy and compassion and radical acts of kindness and generosity. And the church has the arm and the church has the power and the resource to do that and to be that.
Yeah.
I think when we start, though, trying to give the world God's game plan through COVID, it gets sideways and silly.
It's almost like people almost fear being real, maybe. I don't know if that's the best way to say it. Like, does that make sense? Like, why do people, and when I say people, this isn't me pointing at other people. This is like me pointing at myself because I do the same thing, why do we get so afraid of just sitting and not talking or not feeling like we have to explain everything? What do you think the fear is on that? Like, why do we freak out, or why? Because just to kind of frame this a little bit, like I've seen people in my own life, like where things have happened to me where it's like silence. And I don't think people who aren't texting, who aren't calling, are not doing those things because they didn't love or they didn't care about you. But I honestly think it was like, man, I just don't even know what to say in this moment. You know what I'm saying? Like,
absolutely.
What would be like, why do we do that? But then what can we do to just be with people in those difficult moments?
Yeah. And again, I don't want to overharp on, my little grandstand, but this is just so important to me in this phase of my walk with God. And then you couple that with what we're going through. I feel it so strongly in my bones. And so I want to shout it from the rooftops, but I have, in my 46 years of living, which is a lot to some and a little to others listening to this, and my 20 some years of really having an authentic relationship with the Lord, I've just realized that answers play a very tiny part in intimacy. And I used to, we're trained as Westerners to think that when you get the answer solved, the intimacy piece will just become vibrant. Mm. That's just, come on, we know that. That's not true. That's not like it doesn't matter how in depth I understand and get to know my wife. We have to be intimate. Like, we have to spend time together. Like, it doesn't matter how much I know about her story, how much I could recite to you her story, how much I could tell you about the intricacies and depths of who she is. Mm. That will be nice to say that I know of her, but to really know her doesn't come from getting the answers about it. It comes from being with her.
Wow.
Like intimacy, like togetherness. And right now, when we're so tempted to want to make sense of this, I'm trying so hard to leave that up to the powers that be. And by powers that be, I mean our celestial powers, right?
Yeah.
God, Jesus and the Holy Spirit. I'm going to leave that to them, to trust them to do their best work in a really awful time. Mm-hmm. And my lane is, I'm going to be with them. I'm going to let them walk me through this, shepherd me through this. And I want to not know more about why bad things happen to good people or good things happen to bad people.
Right.
I want to be with God, and and so I've even practiced. This has become a really important spiritual discipline for me. And I'm like you, I'm a Pentecostal, so this is a big deal for me to make this a practice. I've spent the last almost 2 years, especially the last year though, learning to be quiet with God. And I just be the whole goal. And trust me, I'm not only a Pentecostal in the Christian sense, I'm a capitalist in the American sense. Those two things do not teach you how to sit silently.
Wow.
We call things productive. We call those things a waste of time, right? Like even lazy, it can be called. But I have found such beauty in the quiet waters of God. And if I read Psalms 23, right, it says, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. He leads me beside quiet waters, right? Like if he's really leading, then quiet is an integral part of our walk with God. And if I've ever, where the noise in my head and my heart is screaming because of this COVID-19 thing, and me being unemployed and not knowing how I'm going to provide for my family, and being stuck at home so I can't proactively be out there getting it done for my family, I have to be quiet before God, because it is everything else in my noise, in my head and my heart right now is so noisy. But it's a discipline like anything else. It's a muscle. And the more you flex it, the more beautiful it is, but it takes time. But that's been huge for me, is to sit silent with God in these really loud, chaotic times, and not accomplish anything other than what he supernaturally wants to pour into me, and trust that he's doing that.
Yeah.
And so for me, 5 to 15 minutes is about what I'm capable of on a holy level. Some days it's 5 and I'm just out, but it's not about checking in and checking out. It's not about winning something. It's not a competition. But some days I can sit silent for 15 straight minutes and give God my whole heart without a bunch of thoughts and no petitions. I'm not trying to earn anything. I'm not trying to go back and forth. It's just silent with God.
Wow. So you would say you do that you try to do that on a daily basis?
Almost daily. I'd love to say I did it not only daily, but a couple times a day, but my goal is daily, and most days I get it. And some days I'm human. It doesn't happen.
I think that correlates too with, just like you used the example of Job and his friends. Like, when they were at their best, they were silent. They were
Yeah.
just there. And
Yep.
it's so against our human nature. And especially now with just how the society we live in, the technology we have, everything's chirping, everything's vying for our attention. Man, it is so important to just be with people. I'll never forget, there was a lady who sat in my office one day, and her husband had died a few years ago, and she was just struggling. Like, she, there were some comments made from other people, and it almost made pain seem like, just believe God, believe God and it'll all go away, or, have faith and you're going to get through it. And she was like, I just remember being like super bothered by it. And I felt like I couldn't relate. I've never lost anybody that close to me, and heaven forbid that ever happens. But I just realized, like, I had nothing to say to her. I just was listening to her, and it was almost like I just let her gripe. I let her cry. I let her be angry. And man, it was like that was the only thing that she just needed. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
It's crazy how, like, there's healing that can come from that in those moments.
Yeah. Our presence is what's most powerful. Every
Yeah.
hospital that I ever did as a local pastor, was my presence is what was remembered and felt, not my words.
Right.
And
Not some
don't,
prayer.
yeah, I didn't go there and not say anything. I went and I encouraged and I spoke life, and that does matter in the moment.
Right.
When you have trust with someone, your words do matter. Of course, they can breathe life or death. We know that. So I'm not dismissing that. But 2 years later, they don't remember the life I spoke in that moment. But here's what they will never forget. I showed up.
Right.
That's what they'll never forget. I showed up, and when I showed up, my presence did something just by default of being there that's healing. In God's original design, his sovereign way of making us as humans, we were meant for community. And a lot of times the foundational factor of community is just people's presence.
Mm.
It's not people's words. It's not people's thoughts. It's not people's ideas. It's not people's opinions. It's people's presence that's healing. And
No.
we have something in us that when we just show up, and that's why when Job's friends just show up and sit, they don't have to say anything.
Right.
Their presence alone is Job going, okay, I'm grieving. This sucks. I hate this, but I'm not alone.
Right.
And I have some people that hate this with me and for me. And I have some people that are sad with me and for me.
Yeah.
And I have some people that are feeling also the loss of my family because they were their family and their friends as well. And they're feeling it with me. And it doesn't solve all the problems, but this is the beautiful role God's allowed us in his kindness to play.
Yeah. Man,
and
I
we're
just
all qualified. We're not all, I don't think any of us are qualified to really armchair quarterback what God's up to during COVID-19. But here's what I unapologetically tell us we're all qualified to do is bring our presence to the table.
Yeah.
It matters. And it's holy. And there's something sovereignly energizing about your presence and my presence and everyone who's listening to us. Your presence matters. And so we don't have to overthink our strategy in this time. We just need to be willing to give our hearts away and give our presence to other people.
Man.
And
so
on Zoom right now.
Yeah, I know. And that's what I was going to ask. So, like, practically speaking, I mean, obviously we're all online right now, but even maybe if someone's listening to this, a month, 2 months down the line, and we're all partying together and we can, not social distance anymore. What are both some ways we could do, like, now, and then also in the future, like, how can we do that practically speaking? I mean, maybe is it like social media posts? Like, what do those look like? I mean, what would you say?
Yeah, I think I just hope we don't, and I think this is I've heard this as a common concern throughout this time, is that we don't forget the lessons we're learning. So this really trying time, that would feel like a real waste to be sobered up to so many things in life that matter and don't matter because we were quarantined and we were forced to look in the mirror at our schedules, our checkbooks, our motives, this whole quarantine, for all the horrific things it's done for people, the beauty is it's held up a mirror. This quarantine held up a mirror to all of us if we're willing to look in it and not just numb our way through it, but to look in the mirror and ask some tough questions about our schedules, about our checkbooks, about how much time our family gets versus other stuff. And so my big hope is, however it manifests after this, social media, when we're back collectively at churches, when we're back in our life groups physically together, I think that's going to be a really sweet moment. And I hope the appreciation lasts. I'm skeptical because I've gone on enough missions trips around the world where I was fired up. We all have done it. I think part of it's just the inertia of human nature, our hearts, and then you're fired up, you come back home, you're ready to win the world, you're ready to change your way. You appreciate every morsel of food you eat when you get back home for about a week, and then you're back to throwing half your meal away in the trash.
Right.
You order too much. And so I don't know, man. I just hope that we all just come back with this just beautiful sense of how meaningful life is and how it's people that matter. That's why we're here. We're here for each other.
Amen. Well, dude, this has been good, and I think I'm praying that this has been helpful to whoever's watching this or you're listening to this. But Chad, man, thank you so much for just taking some time and pouring your heart out. So if people wanted to connect with you in any sort of way, how would they do that? Is that on social media? You want me to give out your phone number? I mean, what do you want to do?
Please don't do that. No, social media. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram.
TikTok? You do TikTok?
I probably should, man. I officially am old now because I'm like, I don't know how to do another thing.
I don't either.
And so I don't know if I'll do the TikTok thing or not, but I'm definitely not on right now.
You're a good follow on Instagram. I just want you to know that your Instagram stories, they're top of the line.
I hope so. Most of them are me being stupid with my family. My kids are crazy, and we get a laugh every now and
then. So it's pretty good. So what is it? What is the handle on Instagram?
Yeah, just my first and last name for all of them. For Twitter,
and
Instagram, Facebook, first and last name, Chad Bruegman.
Okay. And we'll post it as well, just so people can see that. But dude, thanks so much. Appreciate you.
Love you, Chris.
All right. Love you too, man.
All right, bro. Later.